So now the question becomes, where did they get this idea, and how did they think evangelical Christians, which is the majority of their base, would go along with it? And the answer is the Bible. Let's turn to Revelation chapter 13. And I stood upon the sand of the sea, and saw a beast rise up out of the sea, having 7 heads and 10 horns, and upon his horns 10 crowns, and upon his heads the name of blasphemy. And the beast which I saw was like unto a leopard, and his feet were as the feet of a bear, and his mouth as the mouth of a lion. And the dragon gave him his power, and his seat, and great authority. Note, there are 2 beasts in this prophecy. Beast number 1 has 7 heads, which equals 7 heads of state. Pakistan, Afghanistan, Rwanda, and Somalia are all symbolized by a leopard. Russia is symbolized by a bear. England, or the UK, is symbolized by a lion. And China is symbolized by a dragon. But Trump is going to step into this role instead. This keeps the prophecy from actually coming to pass while ensuring Trump maintains power. But everything else on January 6th has to fit in order to convince Christians to comply. Verse 3, And I saw one of the heads as it were wounded to death, and his deadly wound was healed, and all the world wondered after the beast. Note, we know that this is only a staged event, and we will see later that the weapon being used in this stunt is a collapsible sword. And after Cassidy Hutchison's testimony, the blood was just ketchup. Trump, ever the showman, staggers and falls and is hidden just out of view due to the half wall separating the chamber from the speaker's well. This gives Secret Service agents standing nearby enough cover to make sure the injury looks real for TV, and right before the world's eyes, Trump is resurrected from the dead, just like the chosen one he claimed to be on August 21st, 2019. Verse 4, And they worshipped the dragon, Trump in this case, which gave power unto the beast, and they worshipped the beast, saying, Who is like unto the beast? Who is able to make war with him? Note, if we stop here, it would be easy to imagine Trump coming into the House chamber with Vladimir Putin, the bear, Boris Johnson, the lion, and the leaders of Pakistan, Afghanistan, Rwanda, and Somalia, the leopard, sometimes called the leopard with 4 wings. Since none were born in America, none would be eligible to be president or vice president per our Constitution. So it would be easy to believe that along with Trump's speech, Ronnie Jackson, or whomever, also had a fake birth certificate for each of these 7 heads of state. As verse 4 says the dragon, Trump, gave the beast power, we could see this as Trump giving American citizenship, the most powerful force on earth, to them, and that Trump made Vladimir Putin VP, only for Putin to assassinate Trump for real and become president himself. Get it? VP, Vladimir Putin? But a closer look at the remaining details of this prophecy force us to reach an alternate conclusion in order to maintain the appearance of accuracy necessary in order to convince Christians to comply, especially Christians who actually read and study the Bible. I would add parenthetically that you don't have to believe what the Bible says. It's a free country, for now. But you really should at least know what the Bible says so you can detect when someone is using it against you or your country. Teaching it in schools may not be such a bad idea after all, as long as they aren't trying to convert students. Everyone is free to believe what they like, but as Auntie Maine says, knowledge is power. So with all that in mind, verse 4 again reads, And they, Christians, worshiped the dragon, Trump, which gave power unto the beast, which we still don't know who it is yet. And they worshiped the beast, saying, Who is like unto the beast? Who is able to make war with him? Note, so again, this power Trump gives the beast is a fake American birth certificate and the right to vote and citizenship. Verse 5, and there was given unto him, the beast, a mouth speaking great things and blasphemies. And power was given unto him, the beast, to continue for 42 months. 42 months past January 6th is July 6, 2024. Let's say July 4th, 2024. Verse 6, and he opened his mouth in blasphemy against God, to blaspheme his name and his tabernacle and them that dwell in heaven. Again, this mouth is from the beast, not from Trump. Verse 7, and it was given unto him, the beast, to make war with the saints, Christians, and to overcome them, and power was given him, the beast, over all kindreds and tongues and nations. Note, under our Constitution, Congress has the power to make war. So instead of making the first beast the vice president, as we may have originally concluded, the phrase mouth speaking in verse 5 reveals to us a reference to the power of the Speaker of the House of Representatives position. And we will see that verified a bit later, although it still does not yet identify which of the 7 heads of state is beast number 1, because it is a group of 7, only one of which in this case is Trump, who is filling in for what really would be China if January 6 was an actual biblical fulfillment of this prophecy, instead of the horse and pony show we will soon see it to be. Further, the phrase, and power was given him over all kindreds and tongues and nations, seems to be a direct reference to the United Nations Security Council, where Russia, China, France, the UK, and the US all hold veto power against declaring war. But considering the UK was due to preside in February of 2021, and the US was due to preside in March of 2021, and China was due to preside in May of 2021, we can generally safely begin to rule out Vladimir Putin as having any part in this plot at all. Verse 8, and all that dwell upon the earth shall worship him, the beast, whose names are not written in the book of life of the Lamb, slain from the foundation of the world. Note, this is a reference to non-Christians worshiping the beast for getting rid of all the Christians of the world, which will only give the beast number 1 even more power because he will be viewed as a hero of sorts to some. Verse 9, if any man have an ear, let him hear. He that leadeth into captivity shall go into captivity. He that killeth with the sword must be killed with the sword. Here is the patience and faith of the saints, Christians. Note, I see he that leadeth into captivity as a reference to Trump leading MAGA into captivity, because the events of January 6th were in fact not the fulfillment of this prophecy. But that's what Trump and his enablers and his preachers are going to convince MAGA of. Saying he then, quote, shall go into captivity seems to be a reference to prison for his crimes. But I can only imagine that when MAGA realizes what he has done to them, and to the Bible, and to our country, prison will become more of a witness protection program for him than a punishment. MAGA is going to be sorely disappointed, and Trump will be a pariah. Personally, I would like to see his assets to be seized, sold for cash, and redistributed to every person who spent so much of their hard-earned money on his false promises and this false prophetic scenario he seems to have convinced them of. But that's not for me to decide. Next, we become acquainted with a second beast. Verse 11. And I beheld another beast, number 2, coming out of the earth. And he had 2 horns like a lamb, and he spoke as a dragon. Note, interestingly enough, there isn't one country on the planet that is symbolized by a lamb. Instead, we will later discover verse 11 is actually a reference to a lamb or sheep in wolf's clothing who spoke as a dragon. If this had been the prophecy's actual fulfillment, this would be a reference to a person who speaks Chinese. Instead, it's a reference to someone who speaks Trumpism. The dragon reference recalls to mind Kanye West's visit to the Oval Office, where he declared Trump had dragon energy. That's, of course, not to say Kanye knew everything I'm sharing here, but it is one more evidence of Trump's premeditated attempt to keep the big lie going and make it appear to the world that this prophecy was actually coming to pass on January 6th. But it was not Xi Jinping. Instead, it appears to be an attempt by Trump to frame Xi Jinping for the events of January 6th and blame it all on China, which means it's now even less likely to be Putin. Verse 12, and he, beast number 2, exerciseth all the power of the first beast, which we still don't know who that is, before him, and causes the earth and them which dwell therein to worship the first beast, whose deadly wound was healed. Note, we now see the first beast number 1 was made Speaker of the House. As we have a bicameral form of government, to exercise all the power of the first beast, then the second beast must have then be appointed to President of the Senate, aka the Vice President. Thus far, it seems most Americans believe the next speaker will be Kevin McCarthy, but it may have also been any number of other people Trump likely promised the speakership to, especially Marjorie Taylor Greene, who made remarks that if she were speaker, she would rule with an iron fist. But in reality, such deluded souls were likely being lied to by Trump just to gain their cooperation in the coup. With so many gun enthusiasts who also just happened to request preemptive pardons from Trump before he left office, it shouldn't be too difficult to figure out a short list of likely co-conspirators, all of whom believed they were about to rule America forever. It would also explain how such folks would find the motivation necessary to carry out the next verse. Revelation 13:13, in a way that people around the world would believe that this prophecy was unfolding before our very eyes in real time on January 6th, even though it was not. And we will show yet other proofs of this assertion as we progress. Verse 13, and he, the second beast, doeth great wonders, so that he, the second beast, Vice President, maketh fire come down from heaven on the earth in the sight of men, and deceiveth them that dwell on the earth by the means of those miracles by which he had power to do in the sight of the first beast, saying to them that dwell on the earth that they should make an image to the first beast, which had the wound by a sword and did live. Now this next part is not for the faint of heart. In the dome of the Capitol, there is a depiction of George Washington in what is called the apotheosis, which means the perfect form or example of something, the highest and best part of something, elevation to divine status, and deification, which would explain why so many rioters defecated throughout the Capitol, having misread the word deification. Remember Kimberly Guilfoyle, the best is yet to come, remarks. Well, the apotheosis is not just a painting of George Washington, but it is a mural of George Washington in heaven. So when the beast number 2 doeth great wonders so that he maketh fire come down from heaven, it seems this is a reference to the massacre of Christian members of Congress who refused to follow Trump being slaughtered by snipers in the uppermost balcony of the Capitol dome. And the reason everyone was so interested in giving those Capitol tours is because they were trying to figure out how to get up there. Interestingly, the architect of the Capitol sits on the Capitol Police Board and testified just a few days after the attack that although some Capitol police officers may have requested additional support, such support is only made available through a request that must be voted on by the board. But nobody ever asks the architect of the Capitol to hold such a meeting. Instead, it would seem Trump made sure that someone on the Capitol Police Force indeed made the request, but also made sure they never told the architect, so a vote could not be held to approve the request. This would also explain why Oath Keepers founder Stuart Rhodes regretted not bringing more guns and why he would be in contact with Secret Service. It would also explain all the guns they did bring and hid just across the Potomac in a hotel to be at the ready. As the prophecy says, he maketh fire come down from heaven on the earth in the sight of men, it appears the January 6th insurrectionists expected this massacre to be televised live for all the world to see. But at least it would look like this part of the prophecy had indeed come to pass, but without starting a nuclear war. So when Trump gave his speech, if that's what it was going to happen, where he said, you're either with me or against me, those who were against him were all escorted into the rotunda and massacred. It could also mean the entire Congress was dismissed without choosing right then and there, and the entire Congress moved into the rotunda, along with all the Supreme Court judges and all of Trump's cabinet, just like we would see in a State of the Union address. And all of them moved into the rotunda and massacred, leaving only Trump, with no Supreme Court and no Congress. Verse 15, and he, the second image, had power to give life unto the image of the first beast, that the image of the beast should both speak and cause that as many as would not worship the image of the beast should be killed. Note, this could easily be accomplished through television playing all Trump all the time. He had power to give life unto the image of the beast, not the beast itself. And the only power he would need to give life to the image of the beast would be a remote control. That is all that would be necessary to convince Christians that this prophecy had been fulfilled. Verse 16, and he causeth all, both small and great, rich and poor, free and bond, to receive a mark in their right hand or in their foreheads. Note, this could easily be accomplished with a tattoo. Verse 17, and that no man might buy or sell, save that he had the mark, or the name of the beast, or the number of his name. Here is wisdom. Let him that hath understanding count the number of the beast, for it is the number of a man, and his number is 666, 666. Note, so far we have already ruled out Vladimir Putin and Xi Jinping. While Boris Johnson of the UK may have been part of the coup, it would not require being fitted into this prophecy. The same goes for the leaders of Pakistan, Afghanistan, Rwanda, and Somalia. Since the prophecy says, let him that hath understanding count the number of the beast, countless people throughout history and around the globe have turned to calculating birthdays. Oddly enough, out of all the people in the world who also just happened to attend CPAC meetings this year, Viktor Orban of Hungary was born on May 31st, 1963. Represented as a number, the month of May equals 5 plus 31 plus 1963 equals 1999. Clearly, this is not the number 666. But if 1999 is tattooed onto one's hand, and one turned their hand to read the number upside down, we would discover it would also read as 6661. Since we now know Trump was appearing to blame this all on China, then the mark of the beast is likely the number 1999 in Chinese. And if so, I would not be surprised to discover that many of the insurrectionists already have such a tattoo on the back of their hand. And who knows what he would do after that? I would think he would nuke New York to get rid of Wall Street and crash the world's economy, as well as ensure that nobody else on the planet could see what was going on here in the nightly news. But suddenly, all the pro-Putin talking heads make sense. There seems to be a preference for Putin to be beast number one, knowing Trump isn't going to last much longer. Poor Trump is likely just hoping he dies before then to avoid any suffering or accountability. And then we also begin to see the radical actions of the Supreme Court. As it appears, Clarence Thomas tipped off all his fellow justices, who likely would have been called into the chamber as well and slaughtered in the rotunda with the Congress members, that would leave America with no Congress and no Supreme Court, except for maybe Republicans, who surely have been tipping each other off about all this, leaving Democrats in the dark. Now here's some interesting things to think about. First of all, some of the forced prophetic fulfillment led to some what could have been bad decisions by Mr. Trump, as he tried to invite these individual countries to attend his swearing-in ceremony during this attack on January 6th. It appears everyone turned him down. But what's interesting is that when we look at the countries involved, again, Afghanistan, Pakistan, Rwanda, the UK, China, Russia, and Somalia, in an effort to force this prophecy to come to pass, in the absence of these world leaders, none of which were actually going to be there, we'll see later on Trump was intending to install a Trump monarchy. And we'll learn that from birthdays yet again. First of all, though, January 6th just happens to be Eric Trump's birthday. He was born in 1984, and for the past 3 or 4 years, the GOP, different members of the GOP, have invited people on Twitter and probably elsewhere to sign Eric's birthday card. I would say that if I was the FBI, that might be the rioter Rolodex. In other words, that might be, as people sign Eric's birthday card, that might have been how the insurrectionists were invited, based on whoever had signed his card. Seeing the January 6th birthday, already knowing pieces and bits of the prophecy themselves from their church or whoever it has been that's been communicating this to them, poorly, I might add, and we'll see just how badly it was communicated to them later on. But the dragon doesn't turn out to have been Trump at all. Instead, they had someone named Shaman Jacob Chansley. He ended up going to jail for 41 months, and we'll see clues like the sheep skin with 2 horns that spake like a dragon.
Where the fuck are they? Look, it's a PR war, okay? You have to understand it's an IO war. We can't lose the IO war. We're better than that. Okay? Information operation.
There's gotta be something in here we can fucking use against these scumbags. Something strong about butterfly. He's a good one. Him and Wall or whatever.
Cruz, I think Cruz would want us to do this, so
Yeah, absolutely.
I think we're good.
The mark of the beast on the back of his hand that exercises all the power of the first beast. He did figure out that was a reference to the vice president, and his friend, which represented the mouth of the lion. We'll see the genesis of the Antifa excuse, and then we'll see the rioters' representation of this prophecy's fulfillment for the part that said he had power to give life unto the image of the beast. Like I said, it had been easy enough to just set up a TV and put it on every channel and turn it on. Instead, this is what they came up with. Kind of the Dollar General version of the prophetic fulfillment. But if you don't know any better, it still looks like this prophecy has come to pass right before your very eyes. That's all they were trying to do, was to convince Christians, mostly Christians who don't read their Bibles, that this prophecy had come to pass. Trump had been resurrected from the dead. There's the beasts, they've taken their places, including even down to the feet of the bear spray. But when we see that, Afghanistan and Somalia were two of the countries that were represented by a leopard, and right after January 6th, we have a troop withdrawal from both countries. Were they being paid for their silence on this whole thing? Rwanda, remember when Trump called them shithole countries? And Pakistan, remember the reset? Was that hush money? Remember Boris Johnson's reaction to January 6th? Looks like he was invited and tried to hide that fact. And then there's the bear, Russia. Interestingly enough, now here is what appears to have been what Trump was really planning. He wasn't just trying to make this prophecy look like it had been fulfilled. He was getting ready to install a Trump monarchy. Now, we've already seen number 1999 was Mr. Orban. Everybody was going to think he was going to be the 6661. Interestingly enough, someone else's birthday also adds up to 1999. His name is Greg Jacob, who was born on September 16, 1974, and was Mike Pence's lawyer. So, there's a possibility that Mr. Orban did come to CPAC, did think he was going to be the president or vice president of the United States, but he was just a useful idiot. And it looked like part of the reason to get rid of Mike Pence was so that his lawyer could do what Trump wanted Pence to do in the first place, certifying the fake elections and whatever else. That's not an accusation, it's just a possibility. Also, Megyn Kelly was born on November 18, 1970. Remember when she first interviewed Trump and they had the debate and he said there was blood coming out of her whatever? I wonder if that might have been a veiled threat for her being so direct with him about women's rights, etc., that he was trying to basically intimidate her into silence. She left Fox News somewhat shortly after that, and I hope she's doing really well now. But it could have been that she knew of the plot and was trying to thwart it, and that was his reaction. It would certainly explain it. But suppose, again, Eric Trump's birthday is on January 6th, so suppose we had a birthday party list, a guest list of sorts, from Mr. Trump. 1999 is Mr. Orban or Greg Jacob or Megyn Kelly. Plug in anybody you want to. Then, to convince Christians that this was going to be a legitimate monarchy, guess who number 2000 is? Melania Trump, born on April 26, 1970, as well as Carrie Lake, born on August 8, 1969, and an Anna Paulina Luna, born on May 6, 1989, former Speaker of the House Paul Ryan, born on January 29, 1970, and one of Trump's several wives, Marla Maples, born on October 27, 1963. All of those equal 2000. 2001, Ron DeSantis, September 14, 1978. Amy Coney Barrett, January 28, 1972. David Nordquist, November 24, 1966. Dan Crenshaw, March 14, 1984. 2002. Greg Steube, May 19, 1978. Gretchen Whitmire, August 23, 1971, which would certainly explain her kidnapping. They were trying to move her out of the way. 2003, Sean Hannity, December 30th, 1961. Mr. Tom Fitton, May 30th, 1968. 2004, Ted Cruz, December 22nd, 1970. And Marco Rubio, May 28th, 1971. And President Zelensky, January 25th, 1978. George P. Bush, April 24th, 1976. Brandon Straka, the guy in the jail at CPAC, December 16th, 1976. And John McEntee, May 9th, 1990. 2005, Mike Pompeo, December 30th, 1963. 2006, Marjorie Taylor Greene, May 27th, 1974, as well as Kat Kamek, February 16th, 1988, and Michael Waltz, January 31st, 1974. 2007, Kash Patel, February 25th, 1980. 2008, Tony Ornato, November 24th, 1973. 2010, Kayleigh McEnany, April 18th, 1988, as well as Alyssa Farah, June 15th, 1989. Emmanuel Macron, December 21st, 1977. 2011, Kim Kardashian, October 21st, 1980. 2012, Milo Yiannopoulos, October 18th, 1984. 2014, George Papadopoulos, August 19th, 1987. 2016, Tiffany Trump, October 13th, 1993, as well as Byron Lowell Donalds, October 28th, 1978. 2017, Lauren Boebert, December 19th, 1986. 2018, August Pfluger, December 28th, 1978. 2019, Hope Hicks, October 21st, 1988. 2020, Donald Trump Jr., December 31st, 1977. 2021, Ivanka Trump, October 30th, 1981. 2022, Josh Hawley, December 31st, 1979. 2026, Judd Deere, November 28th, 1987. 2029, Barron Trump, March 20th, 2006. And folks who seem to have been invited but declined. 2003, Sarah Huckabee Sanders, August 13th, 1982. 2007, Adam Kinzinger, February 27th, 1978. And 2001, Liz Cheney, July 28, 1966. Again, those I'm sure were invited and declined. But they're onto him. Now, if Trump is POTUS and 1999 is VP Orban or Greg Jacob in this fake prophecy scenario, it would appear they were just a useful idiot to be replaced by Melania Trump. And every person listed in between would have been Trump's new cabinet, or at least that was their promise from Trump to help them go along with the idea. But in reality, they were going to have to make room for Donald Trump Jr. and Ivanka Trump, and even Barron Trump, and possibly Eric Trump, as his birthday is on January 6th, which would still be enough to make Christians believe he belonged in the line of succession, even though his calculated number is only 1991. It would appear Trump planned on installing a monarchy with no Congress and no Supreme Court. Everyone in between would be removed. Notice these are all people who were in Trump's family and administration or are new Trump-endorsed candidates and are all ripe for being thrown under the bus. This would also explain the list of names found in Trump's toilet. Again, this is all just a theory, and I'm sure it's all just one great big coincidence, right down to even Marla Maples. Trump likely had no plans to include her in the line of succession, but considering he married her on December 20th, 1993, it gives us an idea just how long he's been planning all this. And there are probably even more people who would fill in the rest of the gaps. And yet none of it had anything to do with any foreign leader. They were probably invited though. So what to do about it? 1. Have every Republican appear before the January 6th committee to let us know how much they know. 2, have the GOP call off any goons they had planned to harass anyone trying to vote on November 8th, 2022 and November 5th, 2024. And 3, vote Democrat up and down every ballot and send the GOP packing for Hungary. And now you know the rest of the story. Your job is to tell everyone. You don't have to believe any of it. Let people decide for themselves. Share it. And let's see how many of these names start to come to confession. Once they realize the jig is up, most of them are going to be looking for a way out, or at least an easier way out than prison. Personally, I'm all for confession. I'm all for forgiveness. I'm all for extending grace to those who were just honestly duped, which is probably most of the people on that list. But for the active agents of this plot, personally, I'm going to recommend all their assets be sold and given to the poor, that their citizenship be revoked, and that we move them to the southern side, the Mexico side of the southern border, and put their asses on patrol if they're so damn worried about an invasion. President Biden once said, "Sunlight is a great disinfectant." I agree. So share this with the world and let them decide what to do about it. Let the whole world start learning to read and study the Bible so they will be able to discern between true Bible prophetic fulfillment and the National Enquirer version Trump tried to pull on us. And then pray for Ukraine. Part of the reason Putin has a lot of power over Christians right now is because a lot of them have been led to believe he was going to become our next vice president and possibly president. But that will only happen if we let him. So we just have to see to it we don't. Auntie Mame was right. Knowledge is power. The good news is we get victory. Revelation 15:2 reads, "And I saw as it were a sea of glass mingled with fire, and them that had gotten the victory over the beast, and over his image, and over his mark, and over the number of his name, stand on the sea of glass, having the harps of God." And for our purposes, we need to consider a couple of things. One is, right now, our laws allow anyone to be elected Speaker of the House. And so even though we've always traditionally elected someone from the House of Representatives, it doesn't have to be. What that means is, if the GOP gains the majority this year in 2022 of the House of Representatives, it won't be Kevin McCarthy or Marjorie Taylor Greene who gets elected to Speaker of the House. It's likely going to be Donald Trump. And he's already proven he will do anything to move up. He only has to remove a vice president and a president, and he becomes president once again and pardons everyone for everything. The only way to safeguard against that is to write legislation to amend those rules, but that requires a 2/3 majority of both houses of Congress. In the meantime, because that may take a while, and he may become Speaker of the House in 2022, but the sea of glass, just install clear bulletproof discs at every level of every balcony in every state and U.S. Capitol Dome atrium so that nobody can make fire rain down from heaven. And if we can, make them magnify the apotheosis to full screen view at each level to get a better view at each level. It's unobtrusive, but effective. You can use infrastructure funds and install it before July 4th, 2024, exactly 42 months after the January 6th attack, save 2 days. It's a common sense, high security measure disguised as an art installation. Then add harp music and live cam drones, winged creatures, and beam it around the globe. That prevents the prophecy from coming to pass in that way. But we remember all of those insurrectionists that had climbed up in the scaffolding and the ones that were in the trees. I believe those too were attempts to bring this prophecy about in a fake way that still counted as fire raining down from heaven. So even if we do this and install this, there's still no guarantee they won't come up with some fake version of the prophecy. But knowing that we get the victory means that people figure them out and prepare for any situation beforehand. And so that's the good news. We get victory. How we get there, I don't know, but let's think about it. Let's talk about it. Let's have a conversation about it. Put your comments down below. I'm going to moderate them. I don't want any trolling. Okay, this is a serious American conversation. Organic, individual citizens contributing to the greater cause of our country. E pluribus unum, out of many, one. If Trump does get elected Speaker of the House, his term will be up in 2 years. But July 4th, 2024 will come before that time, because his 2 years won't be up until the end of 2024. He may be in prison before then, but that doesn't mean that he won't install someone else to do his bidding. There are some minefields we'll still have to navigate, but we can do it. We are Americans. President Biden has said over and over again, we can do anything we put our minds to. Right now, we need to put our minds to voting for Democrats in every single race, up and down the ballot. Because, folks, it's happening on the local level as well, and state capitals. That the whole thing with Governor Whitmer was about getting her out so they can install one of their favorites. Another thing we need to do is when you see a candidate first show up on a ballot, run their birthday and make sure they don't appear to be part of this 2,000 and plus number. On the other side of that are the safeguards that our founding fathers put into the Constitution as far as age requirements for holding office. For instance, Kyle Rittenhouse right now would qualify as an over 2000. He wasn't born until 2001, 2003. So he's a 2000 plus, but he's still too young to take office. Our founding fathers knew this situation could happen a long time ago. Popes used to have to ordain new emperors, kings, queens. They were making sure you weren't one of them. The Catholic Church knows how to watch out for them. Unfortunately, either they stopped that tradition or, I hate to say it, are part of it. Either way, it is every Christian's responsibility as scholars of the Bible to know this and to watch for it. We're supposed to watch the times. And unfortunately, our churches have been so diluted with GOP talking points, we've all missed it. But that's all right. There's time to catch up. We'll see you at the polls. Good luck. This is our mission. Remember, we get the victory, but we have to play our part. Vote Democrat. Vote early. Vote by mail. And let's nip it in the bud before it continues to grow to the point we can't overcome it. Okay? God bless you and yours. And God bless the United States of America.